And so here we are, in brief, at the end of the refight of the Battle of Quatre, using the Volley and Bayonet rules in using 20mm figures and using the 4/5 scale that I've been using here, where a brigade base, instead of being 3 inches on a side, is instead 60mm on a side. We've come to the end of the Anglo-Allied last turn, which is to say the 9 p.m. turn, and focused on the victory conditions. The Anglo-Allied commander resolved to move no one and to fire upon no one, which meant that the only shooting that the French could bring into play was from any of its artillery that was within close range, which was this single horse battery down here, and that fired at the Brunswick Light Brigade and registered no casualties, so that did not exhaust Brunswick's division. So that means that the battle ended with one exhausted division on each side, which means that under the scenario conditions, the Anglo-Allies have won the battle. The other French victory condition, remember, was that they take the Allied line of communication, which is the Brussels Road up here, which is, as we can see, we've got Brunswick is sitting on top of it, so we can be fairly assured that the French do not hold that position. So the Brunswick division ended up with only 2 strength points left, so the French came very, very close to exhausting that division, and if they had done that and had no more of their own divisions exhausted, which would have been very unlikely, then they would have won the battle. So victory was a whisker away, but they did not get to it. And then backing away now, looking at some other features of the battle, it's significant to note that in terms of strength points, so in Volley and Bayonet, strength points would be something along the lines of, let's see, a horse battery, for example, would have 1 strength point. This heavy artillery battalion here, for example, might have 2 strength points. We might see brigades with something along the lines of 4 strength points, or perhaps a cavalry brigade with 2 strength points, that sort of thing. In this battle, the Anglo-Allies lost 40 strength points and the French lost 10. So the Anglo-Allied losses were actually 4 times those of the French. And we can actually see this borne out if we take another view of the wargame room. And here we see the sole French unit that was actually taken off the tabletop, which is the 1st Corps Troops Horse Artillery Battery, which was lost in the last French turn, as a matter of fact, right at the end of the battle, or in the final hour of the battle. And then here we see the Anglo-Allied losses. So these are the forces that were actually removed during the course of the battle. So we can see a little bit of a difference there. And this also gives us the opportunity to pan up and take a look at the proceedings from a different point of view, including bits and bobs like dice and so forth. Okay, that's enough of that. Great heavens, this is exciting. In this shot, we're even on the other end of the battlefield. We're now looking south from the north, and we can see how congested things got at the point of decision. Not surprisingly, this point here being, of course, one of the French victory conditions, the road to Brussels, the Anglo-Allied line of communication. And we can see the valiant Brunswickers fighting on. Well, overall in general, we've got, let's see, we've got These are Prince Jérôme's units moving in, and then down here we've got the units of d'Erlon's corps. So you got this lot here and all the men on the road going back down the road there. That's d'Erlon. And I think I misstated something before. I think it may have been the case as far as the infantry are concerned. None of d'Erlon's infantry have fired a shot. It's possible, I think, that some of his artillery, perhaps one of his horse batteries, has indeed, but none of the infantry managed to get into the action. And we can also see the 3 brigades of Kellerman's cavalry, that is to say this one here and then these 2 down here, they weren't able to get into action either, too much of a traffic jam. And then, of course, as was the case over here with Foy, who had an exhausted division holding back, and then Bachelot back here with a almost exhausted division keeping out of the way, and then finally Piret's cavalry troops down here, which skedaddled down here just to keep themselves out of mischief so that they didn't become exhausted, keep themselves nice and shiny. And other than that, let's take a look from the other side. Yes, so it is interesting because this, of course, was the variant that I played out, which was d'Erlon arrives, which had him arriving at 6 p.m., 1 division per hour at 6, 7, 8 and 9 p.m. And one of the main factors, of course, was that it's a tough proposition to get his units into action. Unless, of course, the French had been doing really badly and had made no headway. And one can imagine if you had Allied units that were down in this sort of a region, then they could arrive and get stuck straight into them. But the Allies had already been beaten back so far that the arrival of d'Erlon's corps has made almost no difference. As I say, obviously, his infantry moving in, even into positions like this, regardless of the fact that they haven't fired a shot, they're still there. So, of course, it does inhibit what the Allies could have done. The Allies, were they not there, the Allies might have, I don't know, some crazy alternate universe. They might have counterattacked or something like that. But the d'Erlon's troops did a good job of hemming in the enemy, but I don't think they made a whole lot of difference to the battle. So it could be that even without d'Erlon's troops, if the battle were refought again, with just a little bit more luck, as we remember that Brunswick's division only had 2 strength points away from becoming exhausted. So the French, with a bit more luck, could have exhausted it and then would have claimed victory, because the French would have had 1 exhausted division and the Anglo-Allies would have had 2. Let's see, anything else beyond that we want to draw attention to? Yes, there is indeed. I had a bit of a think about it, and there's definitely been something on my mind, and that is the huge effect in this particular battle of the high-standing crops, the rye and whatnot that was in the Quatre area, which in this scenario means that no unit can charge another unit unless it begins within 400 yards of that unit. And of course, this makes a huge difference in terms of what a commander can do in launching an attack, because basically what he has to do is march his troops up to pretty much next door to the unit he wants to attack, and then stop, and then attack them in the next turn if the other unit is obliging enough to remain within 400 yards. So this has had a huge effect on this battle, a very different feel to it, and it should be borne in mind, of course, that this is an unusual factor of the Battle of Quatre as written into a scenario in the Volley and Bayonet rules. So most other battles wouldn't play out this way. Of course, you know, there may be limitations due to, oh, I don't know, rain, snow, and things like that. But in your average battle, as it were, then you have got a situation where, for example, light horse could charge an enemy that was 2,400 yards away, and do it with a smile, but not at Quatre. And so, in summary, one last look at the battlefield. It's been a very enjoyable battle to refight. It's been a very enjoyable game. I've done all my Volley and Bayonet gaming, almost every last bit of it, in 6mm, and splendid engagements they have been. But this one has been fun for me to finally get the masses of 20mm figures that I have onto the tabletop, and it's been a splendid vista to behold. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm thinking perhaps that the next 20mm battle I will be refighting and bringing to you will probably be the French against the Russians, because I've got Russians that I've never used in battle at all, and definitely thinking about that. I hope you've enjoyed it, and see you again soon. Okay.